We are at the top of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and start. So recording
Okay.
is started. Everything's good to go. So I'm going to be official at this point.
Okay.
I'd like to just welcome everyone today to the oral defense for Rochelle Massingill. She is here and ready to present her findings. First of all, my name is Dr. Lori Wellner. I'm Vice President of Academic Affairs for North Central University, and I have an amazing partner, and I'm going to let him introduce himself as well.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wellner. I'm Bruce Barnhart. I'm the SME and an adjunct instructor for North Central University, and I'm happy to be here.
We're lucky to have you as well. The lady of the hour today is Rochelle Massingill. Rochelle, do you want to say a little hello?
Hello, hello.
It's kind of like Oprah when we do this. The oral defense, just to kind of give everyone just a brief overview of this process. The oral defense is sort of the culminating experience of the dissertation phase of a doctoral degree. And the way that I explain this to my students is that this is their opportunity to share their research, to share their findings, to share the hard work that their coursework, their experiences, and their research has come together for this particular study. And oftentimes it's the first time that doctoral candidates conduct formal research. And one of the things that I like to make sure that the audience really understands that Rochelle, in this case, is the expert of this study. I may have been her chair, but she has lived it. She has breathed it. She has cried and worried over it and celebrated all of those baby steps along the way. I've been really honored to work with Rochelle through this process. She is an amazing hard worker. She takes criticism, she takes direction, all the while still keeping that smile on her face. And we've had some situations where I know when she gets the message, whether it's from me or Dr. Barnhart, it's like she's thinking, oh man, not again. Or, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And that's part of the journey that we call the doctoral degree. So I want to welcome everyone here today. One of the other things I like to make sure that everyone knows is that this is a celebration of sorts, that Dr. Barnhart and I are not here to ask you questions to get you or to trip up. It's more of a scholarly discussion with you and your committee about your dissertation and about elements that we find that are maybe have some questions about. So that's the way that I look at it. I will never let a student get to this point unless they are ready to go. And Rochelle is certainly in that place. So I'm going to pass the baton or the microphone over to Rochelle and let her go through her presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wellner. Thank you, Dr. Barnhart. It is truly a pleasure to be here today. And I'm very excited to be able to present this work because it is very dear to me. I definitely have lived it working in a urban setting. So for the introduction, parental involvement is a concept that has interested many researchers, policymakers, and school personnel because of its ability to increase academic success and help students well after they graduate. Parental involvement provides academic success as well as enrichment that when combined, they raise grades and decrease behavior problems. The problem statement addressed in this dissertation focused on the limited academic success of students enrolled in Midwestern urban schools. Children in Midwestern urban schools fell consistently behind their same-age peers, same-age non-urban peers in academic achievement based on standardized testing. Some urban schools in the Midwestern region of the country have disproportionately lower scores than any other urban school throughout the entire United States. Let me go back. I'm a little too nervous here. I want to make sure I didn't.
Looked like you had two slides that just jumped through there real quick.
Yes. I want to make sure I didn't. Something I didn't want to do. Okay, so we're at the purpose statement. Okay. Sorry about that. After all this practicing, here we go. The purpose of this quantitative research was to examine parental involvement activities and the impact it has on students enrolled in Midwestern urban schools. A multivariate quantitative research analysis or design, was used to understand how schools are currently implementing parental involvement strategies. This research will basically help to create ways to determine how parental involvement can be used to increase academic success in urban settings. The theoretical framework used for this study is from Joyce Epstein of Johns Hopkins University. Her research is very widely renowned. Her typology focuses on the fact that parents who basically are engaged in their children's education have students who have good grades that last and impact them throughout their lifetime. Epstein's overlapping spheres of parental involvement, basically, when looking at it from a Venn diagram standpoint, focuses on the interplay between the family, the school, and the community, and how the three of these entities work together to support academic success. The theoretical framework, some of the concepts or variables are that it focuses on parenting and learning at home, which is when parents actually nurture and help raise their children. They have and extend their knowledge. It helps students to achieve academic success with the support that they give. Communication is another area, which is exchange between the school and the parents on behalf of the child to help promote academic success. Decision-making is involved when parents actually work within the school to make key decisions about the school that impact and help all students in the school. Collaboration and volunteering is shared relationships between the community, as well as the parents being involved in the community, as well as volunteering in the school. So that also helps to impact academic growth. And in regards to volunteering, when parents volunteer also in community activities, they do it on behalf of the school. The nature of this study is to determine how the overlapping spheres of parental involvement can increase academic success in Midwestern urban schools. The Overlapping Spheres of Parental Involvement by Joyce Epstein is one of the best research designs that I felt as a researcher that has been used consistently to support children's academic success. The key concepts of Epstein's typology focuses on those areas that I mentioned, which are parenting, collaboration, volunteering, and decision-making. And the framework basically supports academic success. The research questions for the study basically focus on, the first one is parental involvement, which includes all aspects of parental involvement under Joyce Epstein's typology, which is parenting, communication, collaboration, volunteering, and decision-making among parents of students who enroll in Midwestern urban schools, and how it predicts teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. And again, the next research question is, to what extent does teacher perceptions of parenting among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools predict teacher perceptions of the academic success of children? To what extent does teacher perceptions of communication among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools predict teacher perceptions of the academic success of children? And to what extent does collaboration volunteering impact teacher perceptions of teacher perceptions among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools? And to what extent does decision-making among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools predict teacher perceptions of the academic success of children? The hypothesis for this study is there is a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of parental involvement, which includes parenting, communication, collaboration, and volunteering decision-making. There is not a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of parenting, communication, collaboration, volunteering, and decision-making among parents of students who enrolled in Midwestern urban schools and teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. Hypothesis question number 2, there is a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of parenting. There is not a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of parenting among students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools and teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. Hypothesis number 3, there is a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of communication. There is not a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of communication among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools and teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. Hypothesis number 4, there is a significant relationship between teacher perceptions of collaboration and volunteering. There is not a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of collaboration and volunteering among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools and teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. Hypothesis number 5, there is a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of decision-making. There is not a significant predictive relationship between teacher perceptions of decision-making among parents of students who are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools and teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. The significance of this study is that it is a roadmap to understanding how parental involvement can be used to help raise academic success in underserved communities. The importance of it is that engaging families and schools in a relationship that helps children thrive, is essential. Learning should focus on the student needs, and it should be recognized that no two schools are alike. That is just so important. No two schools are alike. This study identifies a specific region and addresses how parental involvement is carried out in that specific region. This study can stimulate additional research and conversations on parental involvement, as well as show how the theory of parental involvement can, when it is applied to a specific population, can show the need of how important it is to increase academic success in that specific area among the population with like-minded students or similarities in students. It shows the disparity of student achievement, which has been an ongoing debate that lacks clarity among educators when it comes to certain regions and certain groups of students. And it also stimulates conversations of why students in underserved communities fall consistently behind their counterparts who are not in underserved urban communities. Again, it shows the discourse of parental involvement and its applications when it is applied with fidelity in certain Midwestern urban schools. The literature on parental involvement, which is what I found, does not detail how parental involvement is implemented in certain schools. The definition of terms, adequate yearly progress, is similar to an educational rubric. It determines how a child performs in key academic areas. The National Assessment of Educational Progress is the nation's educational rubric or report card, and it sets standards of how students are performing based on their grade level on standardized testing. Of course, again, as I talked about, communication is between the student and, the parents and the families about the academic progress of children. Community collaboration is the two-way partnership between the school and organizations that the family can be involved in that can provide enrichment to help increase academic success. Decision-making is when, of course, as I explained, families work in the school to make key decisions about the school, and parental involvement and learning at home, which is really one. I just separated them because being involved in parental involvement, I just wanted to separate them, but they're actually one, because there is parental involvement where parents help with the support by academic success, and it also focuses on when the teacher sends homework home to the parents and how the parents work together with the school based on areas that the school has kind of framed to say that the student needs help in this area. So that is just the detail of learning at home and what it should focus on. The review of the literature, a search was performed on how parental involvement impacted disadvantaged communities based on the lack of academic success. The literature review also talked in the literature review. I talked about how 19th and 20th century parental involvement practices basically provide insight on how past events have impacted how parental involvement is practiced today. And comparisons was made in the literature with other countries that also have underserved, that also have experienced disparities in academic achievement among disadvantaged youth. A quantitative research investigation was used to determine how parental involvement impacts academic achievement among minority students. A multivariate analysis was the research design that I used to employ or determine how parental involvement impacts academic achievement in Midwestern urban schools. Joyce Epstein's theory or model was adapted and used as a standard model for the theoretical framework in the study. Descriptive statistics was used to describe the results. A stratified random sample was used to invite participants to the online survey with the Qualtrics survey link. A survey is used when a researcher wants to survey a specific audience and just see how they respond to a concept. And the survey that I used was adapted from Joyce Epstein's parenting typology, as well as I used that, as well as the students' last reported NAEP scores was used to measure the extent that parental involvement influences academic success. The participants included in this study was identified as educators who work in the Midwestern region of the country, which includes the states I listed here: Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. A population or a sample was considered when administering this survey based on probability sampling, and that is a good way to use a survey and sampling because it's easy to make inference. The inclusion criteria for this study was that the participants had to be a teacher, they had to work in the Midwestern region of the country, and they had to be identified at one of the schools that I used for the study. Each teacher was validated by their inclusion as part of the staff by the site administrator, who sent the survey link out to the teachers, and the informed consent was included or linked within the survey. There are 4 areas outlined that in this survey that captures parental involvement. Again, I named them: parenting, learning at home, communication, decision-making, and collaboration and volunteering. The survey was redefined with Joyce Epstein's permission, and IRB approval was obtained on February 10th, 2019. The survey was collected with the informed consent embedded within the survey from Qualtrics. The variables are parenting, which includes all the areas of parenting identified in the study, which is parental involvement, communication, parenting, collaboration, volunteering, and decision-making. Communication, parenting, learning at home, collaboration and volunteering, decision-making, and those are the operational definitions of variables. There are 5 variables that were used in the study. The variables was measured in the study based on the number of times parenting activity was observed by the teachers during a school year. The answers to the survey was based on the frequency, was measured by the frequency of parenting activity on the interval scale. The frequency was as followed: never equals 0 to 1 times per school year, rarely equals 2 times per school year, sometimes it equals 3 times per school year, often equals 4 times per school year, or frequently equals more than 5 times per school year that teachers were able to identify parental involvement activities within their school. The data collection of this study consisted of the 5 predictive variables as I named here: parenting, parenting, work at home, or homework help, collaboration, volunteering, decision-making, and communication. The predictive variables were measured by the number of times parents were observed participating in parenting activities, and purpose of sampling was used. The Likert type survey, as I explained, was the interval scale for measurement. The following steps for data collection and analysis was used to identify teachers that participated in this research. The criteria, again, was that you had to be an educator employed in one of the 3 districts identified by this primary investigator located in Midwestern urban states. They had to be over the age of 18, and they had to work with students and parents. To determine the recommended number of participants, a G-power analysis was conducted. Again, I talk a little bit more about the Likert survey, but the survey data was, after it was collected through the Quadric survey, it was coded and placed in the SBS system spreadsheet where it was further analyzed. Again, I talk about the IRB review board guidelines, how important that was to gain the permission and to get that approval, which was very time consuming. A multiple regression was used to establish the relationship between parental involvement and academic achievement in schools. Excuse me, I got a little excited there again. Up one. I don't know how I did that. Excuse me. All right. Okay, so again, the ethical assurances, the IRB approval was obtained on the February 10th. The collection of the data was anonymous. The participants had no knowledge of the researcher. And again, I did talk about the criteria to be involved in part as a participant in this survey. Confidentiality was further met by how the data was stored. The findings for research question number 1. I feel like I skipped, just want to make sure I didn't skip ahead too far here. Okay. All right. So this is a slide that I skipped over, and I apologize for that. A regression analysis was computed using academic success as a dependent variable, and parenting, communication, collaboration, volunteering, and decision making as predictor variables. There were 5 assumptions that had to be met, and each of them was tested. The assumptions were linearity, homoscedasticity, normality of errors, independence of errors, and multicollinearity. To test for linearity and homoscedasticity, the residuals were plotted in a scattergram, and I'll show that in one of the slides further along. For linearity, to be met, the data points should be randomly dispersed along the x-axis. For homoscedasticity to be met, data points should be evenly dispersed across the x-axis, and in evaluation of the scattergram, the data points had to indicate, the evaluation of the scatter of the data points indicated that both of the assumptions were met, and I'll show you that in the upcoming slide. To test for normality of errors, the residuals were plotted in a histogram to identify the shape of the distribution. An evaluation of the histogram indicated that the distribution does conform to a normal bell-shaped curve, but when I show you the slide with the histogram, you'll see that there were outlier variables that could increase the likelihood of a type 1 error. The limitations of the study are that the schools identified for the collection of data was definitely limited. The limitations of the number of schools were due to time and money constraints, mainly time. One of the schools had a smaller number of participants than the other schools. Again, this ethical assurance is basically just a repeat of what I stated before. For ethical assurances, I had to obtain IRB approval that was obtained on the 19th, February 10th, 2019. The data had to be anonymous. I tried to make it as anonymous as possible. There was no knowledge about the researcher and the relationship to the study. To qualify for the participant to be involved in the study, the participants had to be an educator employed in one of the 3 districts and had to be 18 and work with, of course, parents and students. And confidentiality was further met by how the data was stored. For the first research question in this study, the research question in this study was developed to determine what extent does parental involvement, which includes all areas of parental involvement, impact or influence the academic success of students in Midwestern urban schools. The results from this study from the first research question showed that parental involvement had no overall significance on the academic success of students in Midwestern urban schools. So based on these results, the null hypothesis is rejected. For the second research question, which focuses around the area of parenting, the results revealed that parenting, which had a p-value of significance of 0.972, therefore did not have a significant impact on the academic success of children, despite the fact that peers are, they play a substantial role in their child's academics and their social adjustment through the collaboration and community involvement. So based on these results, the null hypothesis is rejected. For research question number 3, which focused on communication, the results of this study show that communication did not have an impact on academic success. Therefore, the null hypothesis is rejected for research question number 3. For research question number 4, which focused on collaboration and volunteering, the results of the study indicate that collaboration and volunteering does not have a significant impact with the p-value of 0.965. It did not have an impact on the academic success of students in Midwestern urban schools. Therefore, based on these results, the null hypothesis is rejected. And for research question number 5, decision-making among parents of students in Midwestern urban schools, it had a p-value of 0.587. Therefore, it did not have no significant impact on the academic success of students in Midwestern urban schools. And based on these results, the null hypothesis is rejected. Many parents basically had difficulty with decision-making in the school because they felt that they were not able to really be fully engaged in the school based on cultural and ecology things, or really just the lack of communication with the teachers not fully understanding and involving them within the school. So that made it difficult for many of the parents, based on the research that I've read, to be fully engaged in with decision making. So based on these results, the null hypothesis is rejected. The survey results from teachers in Midwestern urban schools basically captured how parental involvement occurred in these schools. The results show that based on the 3 schools identified in the study, that parental involvement had no impact on the academic success of children. The study was used to just examine the interplay between parental involvement and academic success based on the limited academic progress of students in Midwestern urban schools. A careful analysis of the study basically gives more insight on the mitigating problem of the pervasive achievement gap that basically occurs in education that has been studied for so many years. For research question number 1, the results show that parental involvement when applying all aspects of the overlapping sphere had no impact. Again, I was talking about the histogram and basically, the shape of the histogram. The histogram basically evaluates the normality of errors. Here you can see, that there is a nice hump, but there are outliers, and we really want the outliers to be in this other area, but it did not happen. It could be a threat, but since I didn't show that, evaluate that, it makes it easier to make differences. And that's basically all I have to say about the histogram. In regards to the predictor variables, the variance inflation factor, we basically want the variance inflation factor to basically be above 5. And here you see, if you look at parenting, communication here, collaboration, decision-making, and volunteering, collaboration and volunteering and decision-making, the variance inflation factor is nowhere near that. And looking at the regression analysis with the 4 predictor variables and the 1 criterion variable, the regression analysis was not significant. The significance here, as you see, is 0.883. So therefore, it didn't show any significance when looking at the overall predictors as a constant, which includes all the areas that I kept saying over and over again. It was definitely not significant. Again, when evaluating the scattergram to test for linearity and homoscedasticity, the scattergram basically focuses on the regression, how the plots are plotted among the 0 area right here of the axis. And if you look at it, there are more kind of closely related under 0 in regards to how they are, I guess, kind of aligned with the shape of to show linearity. I want to make sure that I'm saying this right. I practiced this so much earlier today, but at any rate, for linearity, it definitely shows that, of course, the assumptions have been met, but again, the linearity definitely is met here. And if you look at the relationship to the lines, they kind of just go they're in the same distance to each other. So, go in here. All right, so for implications, the first research question identified in this study focuses on to what extent does teacher perceptions of parental involvement, which includes all aspects of the overlapping spheres by Joyce Epstein's predict teacher perceptions of academic success of children, how teachers perceive or how teachers basically perceive how parental involvement is applied. Parents have always been actively involved in education. Families and parents both have an integral part in education, as well as the school. They also have an integral part in the child's education and when it comes to academic success. The family is, knows about the child's well-being and how they interact within home, and they're supposed to report, how the child is doing within the home so that the teacher has a clear understanding about the child, the family, their culture, their needs and wants. And that's why they're the expert in the child's well-being. But the teachers also are an expert on how the curriculum is implemented. And it's important that both of these two work together. The family and the parents should work together collaboratively so that the children can achieve academic success. For research question number 2, it focuses on to what extent does teacher perceptions of parental involvement among parents when it comes to parenting impact how students are enrolled in Midwestern urban schools predict teacher perceptions of the academic success of children. The implications that surround this research question focuses on a number of variables. The main thing is self-regulation and how it is implemented by children. The concern is in the areas of social support and to what extent does this play on the academic success of children in Midwestern urban schools. Self-regulation as it relates to academic success is an integral part of how children learn. Children have to be able to self-regulate their learning, to be able to be involved, and they can't thrive unless they're taught it and their support self-regulation in regards to implementing their own learning in a stratified manner. So parents have to be taught that through the teachers, the importance of it, and how to teach it to their children as well, and to support them along the way, specifically in urban settings. So that is just one of my main implications that I wanted to lift here. For research question number 3, to what extent does teacher perceptions of communication impact the academic success of children in Midwestern urban schools? A study that focused on teacher perceptions of parental involvement and the importance of communication. The study lifted out the importance of building the home and school relationship, and the importance of communicating to parents in their own language. This study was conducted based on teacher perceptions in 3 states. And it was suggested that the cultural and socioeconomic context should be lifted out, with the teachers really emphasizing and getting into each student that they encounter and the differences in the culture. So that was very important, and I experienced that a lot myself. When it comes to dealing with parents, it's important that I really get in and understand their cultural, socioeconomic context, and making culture a big part of my learning or teaching, excuse me. For collaboration and volunteering, when it comes to how it is played out in Midwestern urban schools, there are areas that parents and teachers must improve to ensure student growth. One urban district focused on collaboration to help their students make urban gains. And basically in Detroit, when it comes to gentrification, there's an influx of different cultures, different families moving into the city. So instead of the city focusing on relying on the suburban or surrounding districts, they looked at the families here, which is what we want them to look at, the families, the differences in the families, and they centered their learning around the differences and the uniqueness of the city. And the city is like a melting pot, and basically the nice part about it is that we're learning from each other. Parents, students, families, teachers, we're all learning from each other, and that makes it a very culturally diverse setting, which is what we really should be focusing on. For implication for research question number 5, to what extent does teacher perceptions of decision-making among parents of students enrolled in Midwestern urban schools predict the academic success of children? Decision-making allows for parents, of course, to be involved in the school. It shows that it's important that parents have an active voice in the school, and that they use their voice to impact and help all children. It allows for the parents to be involved in any activity, the programs, they have input on academics. And when they have input in all of these areas, then they understand a little bit more about the school, the vision of the school, the importance of the homework. They've made those key decisions on what programs to use. So that's essentially very important. Volunteering, which allows for parents to, that's the other part, to show, really the importance of volunteering is that the parents are involved with the community, and they use the community members to work together and help the school with their support. Recommendations. One concern surrounding this research are the ecological factors that are associated with students in economically challenged communities. Although teachers were surveyed and asked about how they perceive parental involvement based on NAEP scores, it was inconclusive on what parents did to help their children, because the survey really lacked detail. Every school should address communication between parents and teachers. To educate, the educators need to be educated on parental involvement, and many of them are not, and that was basically shared throughout the literature review. The study basically talked about the importance, this study talked about the importance of building relationships between families, schools, and communities, and that is Joyce Epstein's thrust. There's a need for parental involvement and diversity. which helps families based on their diversity, their differences, and as well as socioeconomics, which has not been basically depicted in the parental involvement studies surveys. Parental involvement is very specific based on the school's culture and climate. The effects of parental involvement basically are positively correlated to academic success, and the benefits of it can be carried out throughout a lifetime. But when it comes to parental involvement in Midwestern urban schools, there needs to be more detail in regards to what we can do to help lift those scores, and so that their scores specifically in Midwestern urban schools are more closely correlated to students who are not enrolled in Midwestern urban schools. Children who come from lower income households face more challenges, as we know, with parent engagement than children who do not come from those areas. Middle to upper class households, basically, there's a need for more support from teachers, parents, and communities. Another concern is if teachers provided parents with specifics regarding homework. Sending homework home is just not enough. Making sure that parents understand what the homework is, and as well as if they had resources. So the socioeconomic factor, some parents may not have internet access or computers. Just sending it home and expecting them to get the homework done is just not enough. There needs to be further conversations, and when teachers are educated on the importance of parental involvement, they'll be able to ask those key questions. Providing homework, and this is recommendations for future research. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going through the slides, and basically I didn't lift out what I'm talking about here. But the key thing that I felt would be neat in a perfect world, and I think we may get to this specifically in Detroit, because they are looking at developing and working more with community resource, is homework banks, which is when community members that provide tutoring services in lower income communities just employing the local libraries, community centers, churches. What I found in the literature review was that in the lower socioeconomic communities, parents did not utilize a lot of the community resources that could provide support and bridge that gap when it comes to the parent not totally understanding the homework. It's just another tool that could help children. And that is it. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?
All right, Rochelle, take a deep breath.
I want to just fall over.
No, you're good. What I need you to do first, before we get anywhere, is to pass back the host feature to me.
Okay.
I want to lose that. That's our connection. So
I would.
So you can stop sharing.
Okay.
And then you should see on the right side, when you see my name, it should say make host or something like that.
Okay. Here we go. Okay.
Very good. Okay. It's a little relief for me. So well done. Take a deep breath. We have a couple questions for you. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Barnhart to start us off.
Okay.
Well, and I'll echo Dr. Wallner's comments. Rochelle, good job on the presentation and your slides.
Thank you.
I thought you did a good job in your literature review and everything, covering about the idea about how in a low income setting, it's more challenging for the parents to be involved because they tend to have to work a lot more. And I thought, that Jane's article from 2014, you used that very well to describe some of that. I thought, two questions I have for you. One, in your recommendations, you talked about the survey lacked detail. So I guess if you had to do over again, what details would you want to add in the survey? Because again, it's the first time through, so you can always do it better, I guess. But I mean, what would you add in to give it more detail?
In regards to providing more detail, in a perfect world, I did have opportunity to talk to Dr. Epstein. Of course, she answered the phone, and I had this aha. It was just like talking to Beyonce or somebody, So I would have a conversation with her, because I do know, based on a lot of the research that, parental involvement is just key in urban settings. I would like to work with her and to develop questions that basically what's more specific in regards to socioeconomics. I would love to use her survey, but I wouldn't want to take away from the survey. I would like her expertise and give suggestions about ecological, socioeconomic, and cultural factors. And I think if we include some of those contexts, I think we would be able to lift up that parental involvement does impact somewhat the academic success of children in Midwestern urban schools, but I think it's just missing the detail when it comes to culture and communications, the lack of communications between parents and teachers, and of course parents being intimidated by the teachers.
Sure. Well, I think maybe in the future someday we'll see an article by Epstein and Massingill.
Oh, yes.
So I was trying to see. I put your first and last name together there and said Massingill. I don't know what that was. Hey, well, anyway, another thing. So I thought you did a nice job. When you do your study, you're not always going to get a significant result. But I thought you did a nice job of then, using what you found in the literature review to help formulate some of your conclusions and recommendations. I want to ask you, despite what you found, you'd still be a proponent of parental involvement to help kids achieve in school, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I live and breathe parental involvement. Of course, I've lived it, these 4 years, but I definitely would be, someone who would support it. I've been doing it for 10 years in the Detroit system, in the urban setting that I worked at for many years. So that's why I basically was so interested in the topic. I would definitely love that. And even now, I just look at things differently. It's like my eyes are open, when I address parents and work with parents and talk about parental involvement. I'm always, looking at things so much more differently as a result of going through this process.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your topic as well. Student success is really a hot thing, not only at your level, but also at the college level for sure as well. So you certainly have a timely topic that was really good to read it. And I will pass it back to Dr. Wellner now.
Thank you, Dr. Barnhart. Good questions. And that kind of bridged on one of my questions for you. And this is a practical question, and I'll get to my other ones, but it kind of fit with his question. And that is, when you connect with families or parents or grandparents, whoever that nucleus is for that child, how do you emphasize some of these key elements that you used in Epstein's model in your research? How do you bring that to life?
Basically, I really just emphasize the importance of just being involved. This summer, I had the opportunity to work in a prison teaching, just during the summertime. So within that prison setting, I really talked to, and it was all females. So I really talked to them about the importance of parental involvement. And I wanted to know, even though despite the situation that you're in, what are you doing? Are you involved? Because they talked about their children, and absolutely every last one of them said that they, so touching, but they said that they communicate with their teachers through the JPay. They send notes home, with the custodial parents to the teachers, and they also ask their children about the importance of, the homework and all of that. So that is just one example, and I stressed with them, and they agreed with me unanimously, the importance of actually supporting their children. One parent says that her kid calls her every week and she helps her with the homework over the phone. So parents are involved at every level. This is just the natural instinct as parents, but I just think that they need to be guided and their level of support so that it impacts academic success.
And I think too, you really hit on an important point. Dr. Barnhart brought that out, and that is while your findings are not significantly huge on either side, they still make an impact. And I know that was something that we've talked about too, and that it was a little, I guess, upsetting maybe is a
Yes,
use
it
that
was.
you really wanted to see some significant impact or some significant numbers. And
Yes.
okay, I mean, think about, and I use this often because this isn't, like I said in my text earlier today to you, happens. And it's
Yeah.
okay. I mean, this is how penicillin was discovered. It's a mistake. And look,
Yeah.
you know, something that we've used over the years. So the fact that you conducted this research, the fact that you tied a conceptual or theoretical framework to a quantitative study is huge. So my question for you now, you did quantitative, and I love that you did that because you really wanted to get some distinct findings. And that with quantitative, we're looking at numbers, we're looking at relationships, we're looking at just distinct patterns. Now, if we were to conduct a qualitative study where we're actually interviewing people, I'm curious your thoughts are in terms of what those findings might show now that you're at this point in your quantitative study.
Well, with the quantitative, I just knew hands down that it would show an impact in some of the urban settings. But with qualitative, I think the research, you know, the conversations would be, it would show more detail, some of the detail that was lacking when it came to the quantitative aspect of it. I think it would pick up that, you know, how parents they need guidance. And I think those conversations in the qualitative, you know, in a qualitative survey with more detail about parent responses would pick that up and would provide insight as well.
And I think you're absolutely right. With a qualitative study of this topic, you're going to get those nuances. You're actually going to get the language of whoever you're interviewing and those real live, authentic reactions and perceptions. And there's a beauty to that in terms of if you're really sorting through the specifics. In your case, you were sorting through specifics, but you were looking at maybe big picture. So yeah. Perhaps someone out there or you and Epstein maybe together could do a follow-up on this. And if so, I'd love to hear what those findings are because I think it's significant. Rochelle, so you're at the end of this process and it probably is not going to hit you for, you know, a week or two. And then all of a sudden you'll wake up and you'll think, oh my gosh, I already did my defense. And, you know, that's normal. My question to you is, what are you going to do next? How are you going to get this information out to the bigger community? Because these findings are pretty heavy.
I've already got it mapped out.
Oh my God, of course you do.
I've already got it mapped out. Within working with my administrator, she's involved and I've learned about a group, the National Association of Black School Educators. So being a teacher, working with her, she was a chair when they came to Detroit. So when it came to Detroit, bless you. When it came to Detroit, there was every superintendent from every urban setting, from Philadelphia, Chicago, you know, all of these places. So I would love to present my research with their next big, huge conference. I did have the opportunity to actually present something to them and it was accepted. It was very funny. It was on urban gardening and they really liked it. So I think with this research, I'm hoping and praying that once I, you know, just basically kind of frame it up and make it palatable, that they will actually take a bite at it and say, oh, we're very interested in what she has to say. And I really want participants to actually come to, you know, and just hear what I have to say. So that is my next thing. I think it's next year when you have to present the proposal around June. I've already got it mapped out. So that is one of the main things that I definitely want to do.
I'm going to send you some information on another conference that I regularly attend that is very much like presenting your dissertation, but to a group of other researchers. And it's for research that's been conducted in a various types of fields like education. And it's a really amazing conference. And this might be another way to get your study out and perhaps submit something for publication as well, as they have related journals. So I'll send that to you because that's really exciting to see, and that you're already planning to present. You're going to be on the speaking circuit. And so when you get your book out, remember the little people like
Oh God.
So we normally at this point, and I don't have any other questions. Dr. Barnhart, anything else that came to mind?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I'm good too.
Okay, great. So normally at this time, Rochelle and the audience, we ask you to vacate the room while we deliberate. But while you were presenting, we already deliberated through.
Oh, okay.
And so we don't have a need to have too much of a conversation, because we would like to be the first to call you by your new name, and that is Dr. Massingill.
Oh my God.
Congratulations, Dr. Massingill.
We did not have any recommendations for any edits or changes. You nailed it, basically. I knew you would. So, Dr. Massingill, you are done.
Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
You have worked so hard, and
Yep.
you really did a great job with today's presentation. And yes, you were nervous, and that's a good thing. Nervous energy can propel you through these kind of difficult situations, and that's the sign of a scholar. That's a sign of a professional. And it's my honor to have served you and been part of this process with you. And I'm just so proud of you. And I'm trying not to cry right now. So.
Oh God.
I would echo Dr. Wellner's comments too, because I mean, I get a lot out of these myself. I mean, reading your work, your research, it's professional development for me as well. So you did a great job.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I could speechless. Thank you so much.
So there's a